made $2 million, I was like, if I could make $3 million, then I'd be happy.
It's a supply and demand. Hell, it's a supply and demand business when you're a drug dealer too.
It's what I wish all business owners have, is that point where, the business is spinning the way it was supposed to when you started it.
And out of nowhere, insurgents, on top of the rooftops, started firing down at us. And I'll never forget that day because bullets were landing all over the place. And all you can hear is the pinging noise.
Welcome, Stories of Business podcast family. Wow, so really proud of this interview. Really proud that Paul said yes to it, and I'm really proud of how it sort of turned out as well. This is sort of the definition of stories, really, and it's really what I'm rooting for with this podcast. And Paul shares some incredible stories, some crazy stories, some dangerous stories. And for context, Paul is formerly one of Britain's most wanted criminals. He was on the run for a good number of years, spent a number of years in prison when he finally handed himself in. His book details everything, which is a really fascinating read. And there's some crazy parts, some sad parts, everything that you'd want from a good book. So his book is called Just an Ordinary Decent Criminal. I really hope you enjoy this. This is sort of 2 hours of craziness and insight into a world that a majority of us don't ever hear about, or at least get to listen to. So as per usual, all the links are below for Paul's book, and you can follow Paul on Twitter as well. His Twitter handle is below as well. And if you're a fan, please reach out to Paul, buy his book. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I certainly did. It was fascinating. And as per usual, please click that subscribe button, and if you're feeling extra kind, leave a review. Paul, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This is the first time. This is sort of stories in business podcast on tour, just without the groupies. So thank you.
Well, I've had some groupies in the town anyway. Well, not that hard. Yeah. They've been around me in a band, but anyway, you'll get to know that later on. Good, I suppose.
No, and thanks for inviting me into your house as well. No, honestly, I really do appreciate it. So, obviously, I read your book, Just an Ordinary Decent Criminal, and so for context, I think a good place to start is, grew up in Norris Green in Liverpool, sort of little older, started getting into selling drugs, and that, I'm just giving you a whistle-stop tour as such. Obviously, that time back in the 90s, etc. Finally, the police obviously wanted to speak to you in bits and pieces. You went on the run, and then obviously you got locked up for 10 years, really, didn't you?
Yeah.
So, the sentence was 10 years.
Yes.
So, if we could start sort of way back in Norris Green, sort of your childhood, that was sort of a whistle-stop tour of your book without going into,
Okay.
If we could start back in Norris Green, so I think the first question really is what was it like growing up in Norris Green?
Well, for me, being the youngest of 9 kids, having 6 older sisters and 2 older brothers, the house that I lived in was lively. I mean, lively to whereas, there'd be fights, there'd be more people in the house than usual. Sometimes there'd be like 15 people staying in our house because obviously with 9, and my mum and dad, there's 11. My nan was there. Sometimes my auntie was there because she was suffering with mental health issues at the time. Then maybe my brother's mate had been kicked out of his house, so he'd come and stay. So it was just a revolving door. Plus my dad was a docker. So the stories from my dad were just crazy. And, if, for instance, when the whiskey boat used to come in on the docks and my dad would get up on a Monday morning at 6 o'clock, he'd go to work, and then we wouldn't see him most probably for about 10 days. Because what they'd do is that when the whiskey boat come in, they just used to put the dock on lockdown and get on the hold in the ship and pull out cases of whiskey, brandy, whatever was coming from overseas, and make a hole in the middle of the hold and sit in it and say that it was on quarantine. And so everything that they had to take out to make this gap for them to sit in, they went and sold to make extra money. Obviously, because my dad having 9 kids.
Yeah, that must have been mad with 9 kids.
Some extra money. So we'd all wait for the day to come on because we knew we'd be rotten drunk and we'd all get some money. So we'd be waiting by the door like the Von Trapp kids with our hands out, just waiting to get an extra fiver. And if you come in that drunk, that you'd usually catch him the morning after and get another fiver. Jesus. So I was cute in terms of knowing what to do as a kid and how to sort of manipulate and get the best out of
any situation.
Yeah, well, what seemed to be a bit of a tough situation as well in Norris Green. And there was always crime about it. I mean, I remember one morning, and it was early morning, there's a knock sort of on the front door, and my dad answers the door, and I can just hear this like Mancunian Yorkshire accent. "Hello mate, can I use the phone?" And I'm like, "Oh wait, what's this?" So as a young kid, I've got out of bed and I've shot downstairs, and my dad's ushering me to the door, and come here. And I'm thinking, wow, this is not normal. And so my dad's acting like a right family man, and then next minute I hear my dad invite him into the kitchen, and he's in the kitchen and he makes him a cup of tea. I'm thinking, this is a bit unusual. And then 5 minutes later, I heard him on the phone ringing his depot up, telling his depot that he broke down. And then next minute, the door's shut, and I heard my dad tell me 2 brothers that his van is round the corner, it's full of 3-piece suites, go and empty it out. So they were like ants, just bringing these 3-piece suites. And it wasn't, a short walk, it was a long walk. So they'd come and they put them in next door's back garden, and then they got them over the fence, and we filled all the back of the house up while this guy was in. Everything was going past them, but the curtains were drawn in the back room, so we couldn't see it. So sort of things like that. It was growing up,
hustling and
growing up around that, and obviously there'd be some bits from the docks which is end up in our house. Yeah. It wasn't just that. Sometimes we'd get a phone call, and I remember one particular night when my dad must have been working late, and the phone's gone down, and it must have been about 9 o'clock at night. I think I'm just getting ready for bed. It's dark, so it's one of the dark nights. My brother's gone, right, get dressed. I go, where we're going? He went, just get dressed, I'll tell you when we're going there. And so as I'm getting dressed, he's getting all these elastic bands out, and he's going, right, put them round your wrist. And anyone knows if you've got an elastic band around your wrist for a while, it hurts. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We've all gone to bed at 1 and woke up in the morning and think, wow, what's that?
Yeah.
So we've got these dead thick sort of Royal Mail elastic bands around my wrist. I'm thinking, what's that for? So then as we're walking, it must be about 10 o'clock at night, we're walking towards factories, and the estate next to where we live in Norris Green, called Long Lane, is where all the major factories were, but there was a commercial railway line that ran from the docks and ran all the way up to Speke and then to Warrington, which was the main distribution place across the country. So I was informed en route that the tuna boat had just landed and the salmon boat from Canada, which was full of old John West salmon and tuna, and that we were going to hold up a train. And I'm thinking, how is this happening?
Yeah.
So I'm like 10 years of age, getting sort of, told to get dressed, hitting the road and walking and thinking, wow, this is exciting. And with all older lads, so I felt safe, one of them being my brother. And then what had happened, we'd have to set fire to something on the line. The train only went very slow and you could see it coming up. So once they seen the fire on the line, they'd stop. And it was like a cargo train, so it was like wood slats.
Another way.
We'd jump on. And then the reason why I had the lassie bands become evident then, because what he'd done is he took my coat off and he put the lassie bands round the sleeve and round the bottom, and I made like a rucksack, so to speak, out of this coat and filled it with tuna. But that was what was going back to our house.
The cans of tuna. Was it
cans of tuna and cans of salmon, because it was expensive them days. But it was the salmon specific that went in my coat that I had on. I mean, we took boxes off. The boxes went to the side of the railway line, But that what I got was just for our little sort of booty for our family to make extra money because we were going to do it.
Yeah.
So like, I was brought up all around that.
Quite resourceful.
I think you had to be them days, you know. You're thinking it's the late 70s, or 78, 79, going into the 80, when the riots just happened in Liverpool, and there wasn't really much about it. Was, you know, and I think I describe it in my book as being like Moscow, where it was grey and drab. I mean, it was colourful because of the people, but just the outlook was grey and drab. There wasn't much. It was Thatcher's Britain, you know, and that's how it was at the time, and we were all defined against that.
Did you, obviously you mentioned this sort of the salmon and the tuna sort of heists. Was there any other bits and pieces sort of around that sort of time that, you know, you got involved in, or was that sort of the only really thing, or did, obviously you were a straight A student as well, weren't you? So sort of did you separate that like crime sort of element or that hustling element from school, or?
Well, at school I was pretty good at school. I kept school separate because I did love going to school.
Yeah.
I think the main reason why I love going to school, because I just love getting out of our house early, because I had to. You've got to imagine 9 people or 11 people getting up every morning trying to get to work. I just got up, got my clothes and just went.
Yeah, I struggle with 2 people, never mind. 11.
So it was just, I was wise enough to know, just get up, get what food you can, because there wasn't much, and get out the house and get to school. And, you know, at least I was getting fed education. I used to sit with the history teacher, who was my form teacher, Mr. Orton, and he used to fill me in about bits of history, and I used to do the Times crosswords with him at the time, and that was really, really, really interesting. But there's times when I'd be like over the factories of a night, because on the estate it bordered the factories, and it was all sorts of factories, and loads of my family worked in the factories, and sometimes you just hear like a little whistle, and then it'd be like, and you'd look and you'd say, Paul, come here. And it'd be my brother, my sister, or an auntie or an uncle passing me like gala pies, you know, filled with eggs, or sausage rolls, because there was a factory there at the time, a pastry factory. And, you know, it'd be like, okay. So obviously we'd slot some in our pockets and we'd take the rest home. And there was a wax factory there. We used to get the candles. We used to melt the candle down and make false hands. There was some hijinks as well. There's a story where in wintertime we used to dare each other when we'd melt the wax to do first dip. And so we'd melt it in a pot, because there was a cemetery next to it, and they used to discard the pots from the flowers. And so we used to go and get the pots, built a fire in, you know, with stones around it, put the wax in, we'd melt the wax down, and then we'd put our hands in to dip. And once you got one coating on, then you could keep dipping and dipping and dipping, and it was perfect. And you used to be able to pull it off, and you'd have
a candle.
Well, no, it'd be a hand, but we did used to make candles out of our own hands, and we did, and take them home as gifts. You know, but not only that, we used to make 2 hands, and then we used to go look for the freshly dug graves. So they were oval with still the soil packed on, and we'd put the hands as if they were climbing out the grave, these 2 like that, and we'd sit in the tree and we'd wait for people who were going to work.
Get it, yeah.
Do you want it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, so we'd put these wax hands on the edge of the freshly dug graves, and then we'd hide in the trees and wait for the people coming to work and scare them.
That's,
do you know what I mean? But scare them into looking at that, and then you could just see them all. But there was a guy in our estate called Igor, we used to call him, and we were terrified of him, and he was like the old fella off Home Alone.
Oh, yeah.
He was exactly like him, and, you know, I think we used to, in a way, on the estate, we used to we were scared of him, so if we seen him, we'd shout things at him, and he'd like, you know, he'd come after us on his bike, and it was him, and I remember seeing him come, and he fell, and he crashed, and, you know, he'd seen us in the tree laughing our heads off. He still didn't get the hands thing, but...
There's always characters like that, isn't there, milling around on those sort of places?
Yeah, so as well as that, there was a field the Queen Mary High School field, which the grass was like Wembley, and we used to like climb over these like 20-foot gates to get there. I mean, if you got caught on the gate, you were dead. Because there were proper spikes in them days. You know, there was razor wire and glass stuck into walls with concrete to stop you from getting over. We used to smash the glass and put something over it so we could get over and play on this field. I remember one day playing on the field, and I think my blood sugar levels just dropped, so I've had to like lie down, and we'd always have a bottle of lemonade, so I've gulped the lemonade and waiting for the sugars to come back in my body. And I'm noticing these three lads on their hands and knees just picking something up, and thinking, wow, what are they picking up? And so, what's that? And I remember they had an old crisp bag, Benson's crisp bag, and he said, oh, it's magic mushies. And I'm going, oh, what's that? And he went, oh, you make tea with it, or you can just eat them like that. I went, let's have a look. And he showed me them, and he told me what you'll have to look for and when the best time is to pick them. And they were just everywhere on this field, and I've been playing on this field for the last 10,
without knowledge.
Without knowledge. I think I must have been about 12, and I've been playing there since definitely I was 4 or 5. Because we used to go there every Sunday and climb over these gates and play. That's just how it was then, you know what I mean? We were allowed to roam on the streets 4 and 5. It was okay to do that then.
Yeah.
So the week later, I've thought, I'll have a little go at this. And I remember going and getting on my hands and knees and picking about 20 of them, and just thought, oh, what should we do? We made a little fire, and we cooked them in like water, and we put a bit of milk in, put a tea bag in, put a bit of tea, made a cup of tea, and thought, and they tasted like mud. Just tasted like dead earthy. And I remember thinking, oh, weird, what's going to happen? And we sat on the garage roofs, and it was like, wow. I remember just looking up at the clouds, and the clouds were forming this mountainous region, and all shapes and heads, and like I could just see loads of things that obviously weren't there, but my brain and my mind was telling me, no, that's just amazing.
How old were you then?
I must have been about 13.
13, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember then thinking, oh shit, school in the morning. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to face me dad. And the threat and the thought of facing me dad, knowing that me eyeballs were like baby seals. Yeah. Do you know, it was like, oh my God, this is an horrendous time for me. I remember walking down the road going, get your shit together, you'll be all right, you'll be all right, you'll be all right. And the walk just seemed forever. And then walking in the house was like a movie. Everything was just animated, and colours were so bright, the hearing was so sharp, and my dad was sitting on the couch and just didn't even bother. And I remember just lying down or sitting on his chair, because he had a specific chair. Everyone's dad has a specific chair then that you couldn't go in. And then lying in front of the fire, and that close to the fire, I'm nearly melting the side of my face. And then usually when they'd say, get to bed, you, I'd like fight it. I'd go, no, I want some tea and toast, and let me just stay up for a little bit longer. This time he only had to ask once. Just up the stairs. And then the first thing I'd done was like, I'm looking around thinking, wow. And my brother's Waltham stereo was there, and I remember putting the headphones on, and he had a Supertramp Breakfast in America album, and I just thought, wow, bang that on. And that was it. It was like a new world opened up to me. I found music, you know. It was just, wow, I could hear everything, all the hi-hats, I was separating all the instruments in my head, and was listening to all different beats and counter rhythms, and was like working it out, and like, wow. And then I remember looking at the clock in the room, and it was like 5 a.m. I thought, wow, I've got to go to school in a minute, still feeling like this. It was just bananas. Needless to say, I didn't do that for a while after that. It was just an experience. I didn't get into it. But there was all sorts of it. Everyone was getting into like bits of drugs. And
what was the main thing around then? Was it weed? What was the sort of like overarching around Liverpool? So you're
talking when I'm 13, 14, 15. That wasn't even around that much then. No, it wasn't in my face, because I was always playing football. Everyone just thought I was going to be a footballer. I just got into that experience because of where I was at the time, and I thought I was a bit sort of adventurous and thought I'll try it. Yeah. Little did I know what it was going to do to me later on, and that was just opened up everything for me. I wish now that I wouldn't have done it. I've done it, so it's done. Yeah. Maybe that's why I can talk to the young kids today, because of that reason. But thinking about it, most will be put deep chasms in my mind where I've thought, ooh, You know, there's no way back from this then.
Yeah.
And then everyone was smoking a bit of weed around me, but I wasn't really into that. And I suppose it was at that point that my life most probably turned.
Was it not because it would have been, was it a year after or so when you were 14 when your dad passed away?
Yeah, but a year before that, just then, I decided to run away because there was trouble at home at the time. My mum and dad were going through a bad time, and sort of my dad was like a tyrant to me, and so me and my mate decided to go into town, and we'd saved up some money from like getting some bits from the factories and all that. So robbing some little bits and bobs from the factories, and we used to be ball boys as well for the pool reserves. So we had some money, and so we put it together. We bought a little tent from a place in town, and we bought a little survival kit, and we ran away to the local woods one Friday from school. Obviously, we waited to finish school.
Yeah.
And so we've gone
not that much of a rebel.
Yeah, so
But
we've
it's
gone
cool,
the
but-
Friday, and we decided we were going to run away for a week, and we teach them a lesson, you know what I mean, for not letting us do what we wanted, and you know, having to come in on time. And he had to go to church because he was from a strict Catholic family. I mean, we were Catholic, but it wasn't strict. So what happened anyways, we went to Friday, and on the Saturday afternoon it started to rain, so the tent wasn't waterproof. We didn't know that, so we were absolutely drenched. So the morning after, there was a guy who we knew from our estate, Stewie his name was, and he was walking his dog over the little wooded area where we're hiding out.
Yeah.
And he's come up and all that, and we were like, have you got any food? Can you get any food and all that? And like next minute we've sat on him, like only joking with him, you know what I mean? And we go, no, go get us some food. We've got no food and we can't, we've run away and all that. And he went, no, my mum's just got shopping in ours. And we went, you've got shopping? I went, well, why? Where have you? She went, my mum's just been to Leo's in Broadway and got all this and that. And I went, whoa, what have you got? And he went, well, she got some Space Raiders. She's got some crisps, she's got some custard creams, and she's got sugar puffs. So I'm like thinking, yeah, and I knew he had a little pad and a pen with me. And so I've gone, right. So I wrote this little note. We want custard creams, sugar puffs, milk, and any other sweets. Otherwise, your son's getting it. And I was deadly serious. So I ran across there and knocked on his door. And his mum's come to the door. I went, Stewie's mum? She went, yeah. And I went, passed her the note, and she's just in bits laughing as she's reading it, and I'm going, what are you laughing at? It's deadly serious. She went, just wait there. So she's gone in the kitchen, she's come back out with the bag and give me the bag of food, and just went, just bring her back in a minute. So we stayed then till late the Sunday night, and it was still wet, so we thought, like, let's go home. So we've gone home. Mind you, I've been missing for 2 nights in the house, so I've gone home thinking, wow, I'm just going to get a clout to the back of the head. I was just waiting to be hit. And the first thing my mum said to me was, not where the fuck have you been, but what do you want for tea? And it was like, wow. And I sort of wasn't till later on in life that I thought, wow, that's proper neglect.
Yeah.
Not that she didn't love me, she just didn't realise I was missing. I could have been in my mates. She's most probably thought I said, oh, he's staying in his mates, he'll be with his mates, he's all right. Do you know, he's all right, he'll be with his mate. But, you know, it's 12 years of age, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. So go after obviously you started to get into Liverpool. Obviously, the first game you saw was
Liverpool v Man City.
Liverpool.
That was in the
Man
70s.
That was in the
So by then I was going all the home matches, every single home match I'd go to, and some occasional away matches where my brothers or cousins would take me.
Yeah, because you mentioned in the book how much of a sort of an impact, sort of, you know, obviously there's Hillsborough, and how much of an impact Liverpool sort of football club had on you. Was that just, that wasn't really like an escape, was it? Or what was the, was it an escape for you? Like,
no, Liverpool Football Club at that time, and before that, was just like a way of life.
Yeah.
It was escapism.
Yeah.
It was getting away from sort of everyday life and going to a match and singing your head off and just feeling feelings that you couldn't feel nowhere else.
Yeah.
I suppose it was like going to church.
Yeah.
It was like a religion, and this is what my family and my friends followed.
Yeah.
Because I'd had some brilliant nights in '78. I went to Wembley when Liverpool won the European Cup against FC Bruges when Kenny Dalglish scored. Then obviously we'd had a couple of more European Cup finals afterwards. I went to Paris. Then when Alan Kennedy scored in the 80s, when we beat Real Madrid, and then, you know, obviously you mentioned on it before about when my dad died at 14. When my dad died, a year after, we won the European Cup against Roma in Rome. And 6 months before my dad died, I'd wished my dad dead because the stuff that was going on in the house, I mean, I really did wish him dead. And then I get the news that, hang on, your dad's dying, and it was like, wow. And as a kid, it doesn't really... It didn't sort of strike the chord it should have struck. It wasn't until later on in life that I realised maybe you want to be careful what you wish for, you know, especially if you really want it to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it was strange. But then, you know, we had Heysel then, where 39 lives were lost at a football match in Brussels, and I was there at that. And then obviously we're going to jettison then to 89 at Hillsborough. Then we had 96 people lost their life. So within a case, you know, a space of 4 years-ish, there was a lot of death around me, and I was close to it all. And you don't realise it's going to affect you. So I think coming out of school and staying on at sixth form at 15, 16 for the year, and then I got offered a job, and then when I worked in the Adelphi, and then loads of sort of bollocks was going on at the Adelphi at the time as well. And then sort of one of the lads off our estate was following me around because he fancied my sister, and I was the only one in the house then with my mum. My mum was distraught still over losing my dad and tried to take her own life a few times, and I've gone home and found her naked on the floor, and you know, I've had to resuscitate her and phone my family and phone a lot of people just to try and get help, and I didn't know what was going on. I was only a kid myself. And so then when sort of Hillsborough happened, which was obviously in the April of 89, and ecstasy was at its, you know, just coming to its peak then, especially in the city, then I just dived into that. But with this kid around me, he was 10 years older than me, he was sniffing around me because I was a good footy player, because I boxed as well as a kid, which I forgot to mention early on. I had 6... amateur fights, and I trained, you know, for most probably a period of 5 years, 5 days a week. So I was fit, even though I was up to no good, and I wasn't the worst kid on the estate.
Is that what you wanted to do?
I wanted to be a football player.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, that was it. I had my mind set on that, and I would, you know, my dad never come to watch me play that much. On 2 occasions, I think on one occasion I ended up shitting me pants. And not because he was there, because I thought I was going to have a fart, and I never followed. I followed through, but it was a semi-final as well, so I'd had to blend it. I had to make a slide tackle in the mud just to get rid of the smell. And I remember I could smell it, so I thought everybody else could smell. And I was dead conscious as a kid. I was really earnest in the way I thought as well. So I suppose that didn't help me in them conditions. So I suppose that period just shaped a lot of things and shaped the way I thought. But then meeting this guy when I'd just lost my dad, and he was like a father figure to me, but me not realising that I was getting exploited. Because what used to happen is he used to knock on my window, and these were all top burglars who used to go for high quality jewels. And I just open the window, and he'd just throw a rolled up sock up, and I'd just put it under me pillow, and then stash it in the morning when I got up, go and do whatever he had to go do. And a couple of days later he'd come back and go, "Have you got that?" And I'd go, "Yeah." He'd go, "Yeah, come up in my room." So we'd come up in my room, I'd give him the sock, and he'd look at it, and he'd go, "You haven't opened that, have you?" I'd go, "No, why would I?" And he went, "I like that." And I went, "Okay, whatever." So he started to trust me a bit more. When he started to trust me a bit more, he'd ask me to go and do things with him, and I wouldn't keep my mouth shut, and so he'd educate me on sort of, no, here's how it is, and you do this and you do that. And I was lively, but I kept myself to myself. I wouldn't let anyone know exactly what I was like because I wasn't
Yeah.
too sure who I was. Is anyone sure who they are at 16, 17,
No,
18?
yeah.
But I was really conscious of that, especially being in a state where I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be one of the lads, and he was one of the lads. He couldn't have been, you know what I mean? He was up on the higher echelons of being one of the lads on the estate. So I suppose with my dad going and my brothers off with girlfriends and working here, there and everywhere, and my sisters all finding
Their way and
and getting themselves husbands and boyfriends, and only me and my mum being in the house, and then the next minute this guy's round and he's giving me a lot of attention. It's like, wow, this is amazing. And then I think the turning point was, and I remember he come round and he was a bit showy with me and he was showing off, and he went, yeah, I'll have a look at that. And I went, I don't really want to, because I'd had hold of it for 2 days anyway, and he knew that I wouldn't look at it, and it was his bank book, and he had an Isle of Man account, and I'm talking, this must have been about 87, and he had 125 grand in it then. That's like £1 million today.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, you're 20, how old are you, 26? And I'm thinking, wow, this is what I'm doing. The footy player thing's out the equation now. I'd been to Crew Alexander, and I'd end up going out one Friday night and turning up late and smelt of ale, and he just legged me. And I was disheartened, and I'd had trials for Oldham. And
Well, you've been drinking.
I'd been drinking on the Friday night. We had a game against Everton on the Saturday morning. I just went home. I'd been away for a week.
I thought, fuck it, I'm gonna have a beer.
Yeah, and it just, it all just went a little bit tits up, and it just killed me. It just, inside me spirit, and I just thought, no. And I was working in the Adelphi then, and I got myself a job then with it, because my sisters were trying to get me back on the straight and narrow, because they could see I was going off.
What do you think what could they see then? Was it, what could
Just the company I was keeping.
Right.
It escalated from me hanging around with local lads from our road, to me hanging around with lads who I played footy with, then to older lads, 10 years older, and then their family all around me who were up to no good. All of them were up to no good, and then there was like a clique, and next minute I'm involved in that clique. The biggest thing about it all is, on my dad's deathbed, he taught me 3 things. He told me how to shave properly. He said, don't gamble. He said, the best way to double your money is fold it back in half and put it in your pocket. And he said, and don't go near the Crown. Don't hang around with them lads around the Crown. So what did they go and do? As soon as he goes.
Yeah.
And so I just got involved in all of that. So then 89 happens, and ecstasy's everywhere, and I was involved in it. And so these lads could get hold of ecstasy, and I said, well, I can sell it. So I just started selling ecstasy tablets in the clubs and the pubs and on the streets and from my house as well.
What was that? Yeah, what was that like?
It was exciting at the time, because it was like the love drug. Everyone was like, arm round you, and it was party time. And, these tablets that we had, they were all tested, and we used to be able to buy testing kits from over Amsterdam and bring them home. So we knew that we're not giving no bad tablets out, because there was stories of people, having bad reactions to them as well. But we made sure that they were right. And it was because these were the first batch. Most of them were always right anyway. So we'd be conscious of that. And that just exploded. And then you had this dance culture revolution.
Yeah.
That was just raves in farmers' fields.
All over the show, wasn't it?
Everywhere, follow Big Cheese. We're going to Blackburn for the day, and there'd be a car parked up in the lay-by, and then there'd be a convoy going. It'd just be unreal. But I never used to go to...
Did you ever get involved in any of the parties? You were there?
No. I used to finish doing what I was doing, selling what I had to sell, and I'd go home. And I'd usually go home and earn me money. And pop half a pill, have a couple of hours buzz, and then try and get my head down. And wake up in the morning pretty okay, still buzzing, because you're young and your body can cope with it then. And then just go again. I mean, I was making 500-600 quid a night.
Fucking hell.
And so some weekends I was making £2,000 a week, and at that time that was amazing. So the job that my sister got, I just walked in one day and went, listen, you can shove that job right up your ass. I was earning £2-3 a week, and I was earning, what was it there, 800 quid a month, if that. And I was earning £2,000, it was just a no-brainer. Why am I putting 40 hours into here where I can go and put this time into this and reap these rewards. I wasn't bothered about consequences back then.
Were you worried about the police then, or not?
No, not really.
No.
No, not really, because you think you're invincible, don't you? You think you know best at that time. But I was learning. I started reading books then as well. And I started to read sort of mafia-based books, and also like IRA books to see how they worked, and so counterintelligence, because that's what we were all about. We weren't just about these lads from the estate. We were about, oh, hang on, there's people's liberties at stake here.
Yeah.
So we've got to try and secure it. So it'd always act like a single cell mentality, which we got from the IRA, and we'd read loads of autobiographies about, you know, paramilitary groups over in South America and how they were acting and what they were doing at the time, and we just adopt some of their methods.
Crazy, yeah.
That's what we were doing. And we wouldn't speak to anyone. I remember a kid, after a while, must have been grafting for about 2 years, grafting as in selling drugs and other bits and bobs, saying, what do you actually do? And he was a grafter himself, because we just wouldn't say anything to anyone. Most probably people on the estate thought I was a bit aloof, thought that maybe I was a bit uppity, but I wasn't. I just wanted to say nothing to them.
I tell you what, it's especially at that age, it's like commendable, really, isn't it? In some not commendable selling the drug, but it's commendable not being like flashy and showy, and like keeping yourself to yourself to some extent.
Oh yeah, we get slaughtered if we were flashy. Yeah. We were told no, we could not show out. That was what it was. What we termed it, showing out. Don't get me wrong, I had a house and I had a car, but we weren't flashy, because there's a different thing about having a nice car and having all your mates in it, and having a nice car and having nobody in it, just yourself, your bird or your kid. There's a difference.
Yeah.
So I did have a nice car and I did have an okay little house, but I wouldn't have everyone around my house, and we wouldn't have everyone like 3'd up, 4'd up in a car. It just wouldn't happen. No.
So did you... when you were, so how old were you sort of when you were making sort of $2,000 a weekend?
It would have been 18, 19.
18, 19.
18, 19, and that would have been solid for a year.
I mean, considering, if I think back to when I was 18, if I was earning $2,000 in 2 days, like, I would have just gone.
So I was clearing, I'm also be cleared 150 grand a year. And that's my first year, and it was like
18.
So I had a kitty, so I had money to go and work with, and then the lads would come to me, and then what happened is I went to Ibiza and met this firm over in Ibiza, and they were the bollocks, and I just thought, wow, these are just different level. And like, we were all off our bonnets talking that ecstasy thing, and everyone know what it's like if you've had ecstasy. You got their arms around them, telling them that they're great, you really like them, and you love them, and all that palaver. It was the love drug type of thing. And then I just said, listen, I'm going to come and see you in London. I'm going to land there with a big load of dough, and I'm going to show you. And they were like, oh yeah. They must have thought I was chatting bubbles. Yeah. Anyway, I got home, spoke to the lad, said, listen. They went, do you trust your judgment? I went 100%. I went, just give me the money. I had some money, and they give me a chunk of money. So I think I went down to London with £250,000. Must have been about 1990, 91. I think it was 90, to be fair. And yeah, that was it then. It just began. It didn't actually begin then. It begun when we had a bit of a hiccup with them, and there was a problem. And someone shouted, anyway, someone said someone was going to get killed somewhere along the line. And it ended up me and some other lad going down to London to try and sort it out. And I didn't realise the severity of it until I got there. And there's guys on a meeting who've got gloves in July.
Yeah.
And are not leaving the cigarette stumps in the ashtray as you're talking to them. And I'm thinking,
something's up here.
Yeah, but it was psychological warfare. Just to see if you were at it.
Yeah.
And to see if you were genuine or not. And that's what I got from it. Because obviously it never happened, and then we just got invited then to sit on a table that we most probably wouldn't have sat at. And then we got invited over to Holland, and then that was it then.
So did you start to get, you know, a good sort of bullshit radar and a good judge of character of other people from that sort of early, like, time? Probably even more so after.
I think I was just too wrapped up in the money and the greed. I mean, the bullshit from everyone else who I wasn't working with at that time. I wouldn't put myself outside that circle. I would not step outside that circle. There's just no way. I'd try my best to keep it all insular, so I wouldn't even have to put up with any bullshit, really.
But a good judge of character of other people, like, you know, when people are trying to fuck you over, or...
I think everyone was just off the ban at that time, so I don't know. Do you know, honestly, I think that just... I think that had come afterwards, after you've made the mistake and you realise that they were bullshitters. Yeah. You know, you have to make them mistakes. But we tried to cut them mistakes out as much as we can. But yet there was mistakes made. Do you know? And I remember we went down to meet this guy from Birmingham who was heavy duty. And I always remember him saying, he went to me, listen, Paul, you're okay, but you know, your mates, they've got a council house mentality. And I went, what do you mean a council house mentality? He went, did you stuck in a council estate? He went, you're not. And I thought, oh, okay. I didn't know what he meant by it. I do now.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, I didn't. And, you know, I think they're still there. And maybe, I know I've had a little bit of a checkered life, but I've definitely moved on.
Do you think, you know, at that time when sort of that money started rolling in, did you think to yourself, right, this is my career path, or I'm going to at least continue this to see, you know, when it ends, or...
The plan was I was going to retire when I was 30.
That was the plan,
That was the plan. And I got more or less to that. I did more or less retire when I was 30. I just carried on. I ended up making absolute fortunes, getting involved with loads of different firms. I ended up with a house on the beach worth nearly $500,000. I ended up getting into the music business, would you believe? Ended up playing guitar, and before you know it, I had my own record label and sort of management company and my own recording studio, and we were sort of hobnobbing around all the local Liverpool bands who were just making it at the time, around the year 2000 this was then. And I'd just got enough money. I thought, right, I've had enough. I'm getting into the music business. I'm having nothing to do with it. And so I dived into it. I even went to night school for a couple of weeks to learn how to play guitar, and ended up getting my own band. And within 18 months, we were on a world tour. You know, we were going to venues all around the country as well, supporting bands, the Coddle, the Zootons, the Libertines, the Music. Pete Doherty was coming to the studio to record. The Zootons and the Coddle were recording there as well. We had loads of, you know, celebrity fans around us. Noel Gallagher used to come to watch us play in a place called the Zanzibar in town, where the Zanzibar had the bandwagon night, and that just sort of catapulted all the up-and-coming bands into record labels' laps. And it was just at that time, it was a hotbed of music, drugs, and also Liverpool bands getting signed. They called it the Cosmic time or something like that. I'm not too sure of the terminology, but it was something to do with cosmic. So it was good, and yeah, I'd got enough money to pull out of it. But then I realised after, you know, throwing a lot of money into the studio and a lot of money into my family at the time as well, because, which I haven't mentioned, I've got 4 kids, and I was looking after them, and which I haven't mentioned as well, which is quite strange why I haven't mentioned this, so I think I'll take the time out to do it now, is that I always kept me family life separate, and it's weird the way I've just done that and talking to you at that interview, and I've only just realised that now. Because that's how separate it was. Do you know, the two never used to cross over. It could never cross over. So I think it paid a huge price on me mentally at that time as well. So I spent a bit of time looking after my family, and I think I'd made a few bad investments at the time as well with my money, and it was getting down, so I realised I had to get back into it. And yeah, I got offered the chance to go back over to Amsterdam in 2003 And so, yeah, I did, and started to get heavily involved in it again when I got out. So I'd retired. I put the money into the studio, thought I was going to make it, never quite made it because of other things that happened. Fell out with a few people along the way as well, which inevitably happens all the way. So it proved more and more difficult trying to get out of it. I thought it was going to be easy, but it's not. It's like that saying in the films where he pulled me back in, and it is like that. It is like that because it's like a band of brothers. Do you know? And you'll just do this, and you know you can do it. You go, okay, and the wages are good. So you go, right, well, what am I going to have? And you go,
well, I always think back to the film Layer Cake with Daniel Craig. You know, he has like he has estate agents. He has an estate agent, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. And then you've got him, who's really regimented, and that's his cover is the estate agents. And then you got that older guy, haven't you? I can't remember who plays him with his yellow Range Rover and like all the.
It's Jake Abrams.
Yeah.
It's a Scouse kid, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, those two different separate worlds, which I think you have to be very like dedicated. You know, you have to be, extremely regimented to be like that, to be like the Daniel Craig character where, you've got a front as such, like you're saying, you separated the family from, from the, what you call the graft. Them. Yeah.
What you're doing is because if anything happens, then it could happen to them, then...
Did they not start to ask questions?
Well, no, because you don't give them room to ask questions. There's too much. It used to be crazy sometimes. I used to, when I was working, I wouldn't come home for 2 weeks because we knew through reading all the information we'd read that the police will get you at home because they used to love the term, he's a family man. He's a family man. Well, go and have a look where his family is. You'll get him soon enough. So then when the work was about, I was not a family man. I was gone. I was staying in hotels under pseudonyms or staying on campsites out the way, and I'd have another car and I'd have other phones, and the phones would just get used for that, and then they'd end up in the Mersey or they'd end up, in bits on the canal, and that's just the way it was. There was no regard for your family when work come because they had nothing to do with it, so you just had to do what you had to do. So it was separated, and that's why I just thought, well, hang on, why haven't I mentioned my kids and my family here? That's atrocious. But it was because it is. It is. There's no denying it. And so that's how professional we were. Even now, you're asking me about it, and I just separated it, just naturally, because they were not part of none of that.
Yeah. So this was sort of the time, when was this? So this was like 2000, so when it really kicked off, this was like 2000 to 2000 and, sorry, this is late 90s, is it? When it really, when things really started to get heavy, as you call it, sort of into the graft as such.
Yeah, well, in 2000, and one of the reasons why I sort of legged it as well is because I got called to go and view a barn.
Which we were just speaking about.
Yeah, and at the time we were thinking about cultivating cannabis, skunk in general, because it was massive, and we tried it on a small scale and it worked. So we said, right, let's upscale it here. I think we were going from something like 100 plants to 900 plants, which was mega. And so we had everything ready and set up, and the lads, we'd earned all this and that, but there'd been a few little sort of goings on amongst the lads who I was working with, which I can't really talk about.
Yeah.
And I think because everyone kept their own little sort of council, that these three family members just ended up thinking, right, he's got to go. So I was summoned to a meeting, which I thought we were going to view a barn, which we were going to then convert. I remember the doors flying open to the barn, and I just remember being like seeing stars. There was no pain at first, and I can just remember falling to the floor, and as I'm falling to the floor, I can just feel like something hitting me on the back of the head, and then my head sort of getting pulled forward then by my collar, and a gun was just shoved right in my mouth, and I remember I can just start to see blood. Blood was dripping from my eye, which was coming from the top of my eye and dripping down my head. And then they were just shouting things, which is all nonsense. I was just like, wow, what's going on here? How's this happening? I thought these were my friends, you know what I mean? I didn't ever think that working with somebody had come to this. And then they're shouting all nonsense, and I'm trying to make sense of it. And so next minute they're saying, right, we want this bit of information off you, and they're pouring petrol over me, and I can taste the petrol, it's burning into the cut, so I can't really see. Then they've CS gassed me as well as that. So as well as being pistol whipped and knocked out, then, you know, petrol poured over you, then gassed. And then they were talking about like chopping bits of fingers off and all, and I was like, wow, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing? And my life just flashed in front of me. I just thought, and it just went by everyone. It was like a slideshow that just went. And in my head, I said goodbye to everyone, my kids. The first time my kids come into anything to do with graft. And it was like, it was, you know, obviously it was a near-death experience. And I just remembered just falling to the floor and just thinking, that's it, that this is going to be me. Because I couldn't feel nothing. And I was still getting beaten. And obviously, I know now that that's you going into an unconscious state. And I remember just sort of coming round, and I noticed these shoes, and I noticed these specific shoes. And I knew who it was, do you know what I mean? And there was walkie-talkies in the background, and I thought, wow, these are organised here. This is, I'm going. You know what I mean? I'm going to go in some ditch somewhere. And as I noticed the shoes, I knew who it was, and I looked up and I knew it was him, and I said to him, listen, you know me, what's going on? Why am I here? Get me out of here. And he went missing, and he come back 5 minutes later, and they come back and all that, and then they were talking, and then next minute and all that, he just took his bally off and went, right, I'm taking you home. He went, but you've got to do this, that and that. And I went, okay, just get me home. And I never spoke to no one for a couple of weeks. And
after that time,
not a soul, and everyone was phoning me, and everyone knew something was wrong, and I just left it at that. I think my pride was hurt. I was devastated that I'd made a bad judge. A bad judge, you know, because you didn't really... You know, I'd never got myself into a position before by making a judgment where it ended up in that. It was all just ends up in a fallout where you go, look, I'll see you later. I'm going that way, you go that way.
Yeah.
But this didn't. This didn't, because there was money involved, and they obviously wanted the money. So it just sort of ate me up inside. And apparently they'd gone round and spoken to a few people about it, but I hadn't. And a few friends come to me and said, listen, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do that. I went, no one's doing nothing. It ends here with me. I will wear this. I will carry this through my life. No one else is going to go to jail. No one else is going to die. I don't care. This is where it's at.
You just full stop.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You didn't want to retaliate.
No one was escalating it.
No.
No one. I said, it'll stop with me. I'm big enough and bold enough and wise enough to know that if this gets out of hand, then it'll just escalate.
Yeah.
So let it stop here. And I think that was one of the biggest turning points in my life, thinking just, right, that's it. Because it just gets too silly after that.
When you talk about graft, what is it just a case of, you know, when you're at the height, is it going in, is it buying, let's just call it the stock, and trying to get it into the country and then sell and then flipping it, or what like
yeah,
what
well,
does
you're
that
just wholesaling it.
Just wholesaling it, yeah.
Wholesaling
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, we started off with like rucksacks of it, and then it turns up with lorry loads. You know, and then it comes in pallets, and it comes in bits of, you know, materials, whatever it may be. But you know, you get good at it. It's like anything. I noticed one yesterday. There's one over the internet at the minute where someone tried to smuggle £9.3 million worth of cocaine into Spain in pineapples, and it's actually in the pineapples, and they've gone through the edge of the pineapple. Oh no, it's like artistry the way they've done it. I mean, they found it, so someone's out of a few quid. Do you know what I mean? Someone's out of a right few quid. So it's a case of you know, you will find a way to get it into a country if you need to get it into the country. And that's what I was good at the time, logistics and managing it and managing people. And, you know, when the bits did come into the country, we'd have a team of about 20 people waiting to go, right, you here's your job. And that's what we done. At that time, we run it as a business.
Yeah.
You know, it was run like military precision, and everyone had their role. And
did you never worry about people talking or?
well, no, not really, because if you'd
Slipping up
handpick your people around you, then you wouldn't have to worry about that. And especially if you knew the backgrounds and you knew all their families and you knew where they're from, and you've got like links. You know, you're not just picking random people. We wouldn't just go and pick random people.
Yeah.
We'll have known them for at least a period of time and known the families.
Because you spent a good old while, sort of like you said before, like 10. You'd just go off for 10 days or so, like Amsterdam or wherever that. What was that like?
It was exciting at the time, but there's times when it wasn't exciting because there was a time when I come home and the police had been following me for a period of time, and I'd lost them during the day, so they knew I was a bit of a smart ass because I'd lost them, so they knew to come to my house to pick me up because of that family thing. But at the time, I'd finished doing what I was doing, so I go back. So I've gone back, and I think I've had some money on me in £50 notes, and as I got back to the house, they're in at my car outside my house, and they went, right, you smart ass. So they shown out to me, and I just went home and I just give my partner at the time some money, and I just went to the airport, looked on the departures, went over, bought a ticket, phoned me mate who I knew lived in this place, and so I've just landed in this place and all that. So I told my missus to ring her, so I rang her 2 days later. She went, where are you? I said, I'm in Toronto. She went, how long are you going to be? I said, I'll be about 2 months. And that's how it was.
How did they sort of did the police get sort of an eye on you because it was starting to get a big operation as such? And
yeah, I think what happens is you encroach on another circle which is being observed at the time, and then they go, right, he's next.
Yeah.
But I think they also look at you and think, hang on, what's he got? Are they asset rich? Because that's what they want. They want you with a nice big house so they can go in and they can go, right, we'll have that. Because it's all about a statement as well.
Yeah.
It's not just about, them going, It's about, yeah, okay, it does it work financially? It's not.
And that statement from the police when they went, or they came to your house and they said, look, we're on to you. Then it was a bit of a like psychological mind sort of.
Yeah, but that was like 10 years before anything else happened. That was because they were following me everywhere, and they must have been following me for months, and then that's it. I just disappeared on them, and then they were fuming. So, they were looking for me, and I just happened to be there when they were there.
Yeah.
And like, the window was down, and I just looked at them and just give it a smile. I shouldn't really. And, I think I pissed them off. Yeah. So let's just like fast forward now to 2006. And between that, obviously, Liverpool had won the European Cup in Istanbul for 5 times. That was amazing. I'd got back into a bit of graft and was living abroad for a couple of years. And then I went to watch Liverpool play in 2006 in Eindhoven. And my mate who was sat next to in the match bought the ticket so that no one knew that I was going. He just come and pick me up at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I drove to the airport and got on a flight. The next morning, my phone's gone at 6 o'clock and it's my neighbour, and I can just hear woo, woo, woo in the background. And I went, what's that? He went, Paul, that's the police. I went, obviously it's the police, but what are you doing phoning me now? He said, Paul, they're in your house. I said, how do you know they're in my house? He said, because your door's 14 foot from where it should be. And I'm like, okay, no, this is serious. Well, so little did I know, and I realised later on when I read all the depositions, is that they followed me to the airport. They were waiting to bus me the day after, but they didn't know where I was going, and so they couldn't risk what they had, so they had to let me go on the premise that I was going to come back.
Yeah.
Now, then when I woke up that morning, it was like a big hole opened up in front of me when I was told the news.
I remember you said it in the boat. It was just like,
oh, it was horrendous. Yeah. It was like a chasm opened up, and like it just all drained down. That's what it was like. It was like my life just got flushed in front of me in a heartbeat. And I felt empty. I felt horrible. I felt frightened, a bit scared. It was a bit of everything, because then I started ringing all the lads who I knew back home, and I rang 11 numbers, and at every single house that I rang, the police answered the phone. And it was just like, wow, what do we do? So it took me a couple of weeks to work it out, and it was looking like, hang on, everyone's getting 16 years here, that's what they're talking. So do I go home and face the music, or do I run? And at that time, I just wasn't prepared for it, so I legged it. Legged it all over Europe. Then I remember having a little look after a couple of months. Just thought, I'll just throw my name into a search engine here and see what happens. And that was it then. It was just like, wow. They made me Britain's most wanted criminal. My face was all over the place. Interpol were looking for me. And yeah, I was just doomed. You know, the net was closing in.
Did you, after that, when you got that phone call, did you sit down and sort of have a plan and think it through, or was it a case of the plan is just to go around Europe?
The plan was there's no plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just hopping from one place to another. I hopped from Amsterdam to Poland.
With some Liverpool games in between.
No. Yeah, so Amsterdam to Poland. Then I went to Greece. Then I went to Germany. Then I come back and went to Zurich. And then I come back to Amsterdam. Then I went to Madrid. And I met a friend in Madrid. And he said, come to Marbella. And I went, oh, I don't really want to come to Marbella. He went, well, come and have a holiday here. You deserve a holiday. And I went, okay. So I went back to Amsterdam and then got my stuff and then made my way across Europe. Because that's what you do. And that was it. Once I went to Marbella,
yeah.
It was like, wow, he went here, just stay here with us. And I did.
There was a time in the book, I think, when you mentioned, were you in Zurich or something when some friend had come to find you or something?
No, that was in Amsterdam when he come looking for me. That was the guy who I met in Marbella. I seen him there. What happened is I went to change some money up in Amsterdam in a place where they didn't ask for ID. And as I come out, I seen these two guys walk towards me and I knew they were coming for me. I just knew. You know what I mean? So I just bolted. And I ran down a jigger and I jumped in a shop and I hid in a coffee shop behind the door, but I could see from behind the door there was a mirror and people walking past, and I seen these two people walking past, like looking, and I just thought, oh, these are English police. Either that or someone's coming to kill me. I didn't really know, but my heart's pounding and I'm thinking, wow, who's this? And the woman's in the coffee shop's asking me what do I want, and I'm saying, oh, can I have a coffee? And I'm trying to blend it. By like being cool but not being cool and being cautious, looking out the door by looking sort of vicariously out of a mirror. So just as a weird misfortune, someone else comes in the shop at the time and the door opens and they're standing at the other side of the road, which is about the distance between I am from you, because it's only narrow alleyways. And I heard one of them talk, going, where the fuck is he? He's got to be here somewhere. And I recognised the voice. It was me mate, you know what I mean? And I thought, I just put my head, I went, oh, what, don't do that to me. Terrified. And they were like, we've been here for days looking for you. I went, no, and they were trying to get me to Spain. Then I went, look, I'm staying here. And he went, no, come to Spain. I went, no, I'm staying here. So we ended up getting me an apartment and looking after me there for a little bit, you know what I mean? And then, obviously, so when I was in Spain, I went to see him. And he said, look, come and stay, I'll look after you.
It was funny. I thought it's straight. It's quite nice, I suppose, in a way, like the camaraderie, I suppose, like you said in the book, that, you know, when shit hits the fan, which in your case it did, big style, that people come and help you and look after you and, you know, maybe help you with a flat.
They did. And people who didn't really know me neither, which surprised me. Yeah.
Why is it? Well, yeah. Why was that? Do you think?
Well, I think they know people who know you, and people go, "No, he's okay. He's okay."
Yeah.
So that they just made sure I was okay, and they made sure that I was okay. I mean, there was a time when I was like Anne Frank in a loft, and they were passing food through a letterbox. That was when I'd been to the internet shop and seen me face it, and I just thought, "Oh no, I can't go out here. It's only going to be a matter of time before an English police officer or someone from England sees me and I'm here, and then that's me gone."
So after that time, it was a case of you thought, I'm just gonna let things settle down. Things are gonna calm down over there. I'm just gonna whilst I'm gonna while away the time, if you like, throughout Europe. Was that the plan?
But the case was, to try and make a few quid and try and just get out the way.
Yeah.
Which I was going to sort of try and start a new life somewhere else. But obviously, I tried to get my family out there, and I got them out there on a holiday, and it like sort of got them to stay there with me for a little bit. But that just killed me. I mean, saying goodbye to me to me kids.
Because you had to sort of, did you limit the amount of times you called home in bits and pieces just because you?
It was all done sort of. It was all arranged where it'd be done through third parties, and they wouldn't know that they'd be getting a call because maybe they'd be called to a house somewhere to do something or as a party, but it wouldn't really be a party. It was done like that. It had to be done like that. I was mindful of that. I didn't want to put anyone in any jeopardy. Myself.
Yeah.
As well. I mean, I'd already put my family through loads because obviously the house at home, and the police were coming and saying, "Listen, we're taking this house. This is ours." So they're telling me, my partner at the time, that she's got to move out with the kids, and I'm getting a message back 2 weeks later saying, "Look," I'm going, "Oh no." So then they started throwing me on Operation Captura, where my face was on beer mats. It was in pubs. The beer mats with my face on, we could put your fingers through and say, "I spy with my little eye. If you see this guy," and they were all taking the piss out of me, the lads in Spain, saying he's actually bigger than I actually am. I'm not as you see him, 5'5", 5'6". When have I just said that? I'm not the biggest of guys, but yeah, it was a bit of a piss taking. The lads were calling me BMW because it was coming up Britain's Most Wanted. So I had a few nicknames while I was abroad, and it was just getting a bit much there as well, because what they were doing, they were sending undercover police over with fingerprint machines, and just like they were teaming up with the Spanish police, and the Spanish police would just carry guns, so they were running into bars with machine guns all ballied up and looking for me and looking for other fugitives, and they were getting results. There was one time I was in a bar and someone just rang me, said, "Listen, they're in this bar and it's 2 bars along from where I was at, and there's a linen chute in the bar. I've had to dive down the linen chute and sit in the linen downstairs." You know what I mean? For 4 hours, and it wasn't nice.
Yeah, what were you sort of anxious 24 hours a day then?
No, not 24 hours a day.
No.
You'd let your guard down sometimes because you knew you could. But yeah, and then staying in a flat, and I found out later on that one of the flats I was staying in, that the police were actually in the other block. So whereas I went in the entrance to the right, they were going in the entrance to the left. I mean, there was 50 apartments there, but they had an apartment in there looking for me, and I was hiding out in an apartment there.
Gee, see, what did you have? Did you wear caps? Did you how did you try and disguise?
Yeah, I tried to change me. I put on a load of weight.
Just from sitting around or on purpose?
Yeah, well, on purpose as well, and
Yeah.
tried to change it. Going back to watching McVicker when I was a kid, and he'd always say, "Listen, if you're ever going to get your face or your picture taken, so your face is going to be on a photograph," he said, "just pull a face. What can they do? They're going to come and straighten your face." So I was always mindful of that. So, I mean, if you look at the mugshot that they've got of me, I'm sort of, I look like a Bambi. Maybe.
And did you felt guilty on your family?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I realised that it was them suffering a lot more than me. I think that's why in 2011 I decided 5 years is enough on the run. I've put everyone through enough crap. I'll come home, I'll have myself in. So I made arrangements and sort of said me farewells to everyone, and then trudged off to solicitors to say, "Listen, phone them," and there you go. So that was a bit of an experience.
I think it'd be good. Actually, it'd be quite good if we sort of, there's a step back from there, which I thought is quite funny in the book, when you get stopped by 2 Spanish officers
on the way to Valencia.
Yeah, from Marbella to Valencia?
Yeah. Well, it was in Valencia. The stop was I was going to Barcelona, and I was in a car, and he had money in the car, hidden in the car. And
was there a fair amount of cash?
Yeah. Yeah.
The way you said yeah is
yeah, it doesn't we don't have to go to figures, do we? But
No.
there was a fair amount of cash. So what we'd done, we'd arranged it that I was going to play in a bar there because I had my guitar with me and all that. We'd set up a company, and I did arrange to book me to play in a venue, and I was playing in that venue that night, although I was never ever going to turn up there. So he had my guitar on the back seat, and it was the Guardian, well, it was the Udico mob who had the Stop, which is the really naughty place there. They had the jackboots, and they have the machine guns, and they have the roads with them. I don't know what they're called. They're like X's, but with balls on. So you. Oh yeah, like a chicane sort of like stop. Yeah, that's all it was. But you know, you're not going anywhere. And when you see the machine guns, it was like wow. So anyway, I'd had me sounds on, and aircon come up, and next minute I remember them going right, window down, and obviously. I could understand a bit of Spanish. I'll put the window down. Just remember the heat just coming in and just sucking the air out of me. I was like, and they were like, passport. And when I spoke and all that, and so I'm trying to give them what details I've got. And then they're looking around the car and they're talking. And the next minute they said, get out. And I'm thinking, oh, no. And the next minute, I go, get back in the car. So I'm back in the car. And the next minute in the back, and they look at the search, and he gives me guitar. He opens my guitar car case and goes, hey, you went play. And I thought, okay, so I sat down in the back of the car, pulled it out. I was sitting sort of half in and half out the car, and I thought, what am I going to do here? He went, play. I went, can I sing? Yeah. and so I thought, what am I going to sing here? And I've been practicing quite a lot, so I started singing there. So you don't know why you came here tonight. I got the feeling that something ain't right. And I could see them, they were getting into it, and so was I, and I thought, I might have it here. And so I'd done a few little verses and all that, and he went, hey, bueno. And then he sort of opened me case and said, I'll put it back in, and went, yeah, you know, be on your way. And I was like, wow. And I remember as I'm driving away and I'm looking in my rear view mirror, I could just see the flashing blue lights, and I put my hands on the clutch to change gear again, and my foot's just wobbling with nerves. Do you know what I mean? The adrenaline's just going, and I'm like, how have I just got away from that? You know, I'd had even more scarier moments than that, which I can't really describe, but that was one. So, you know, I'm having some of them moments while I'm away where people have said, oh, can you do this, and can you do that? And because you can, you will. Yeah. And because you need to, you will as well. And I thought, I can't let this happen. I need to get out of this. So that was why, you know, I invited all my mates around to the apartment I was staying in, cooked them a meal. I went, listen, I'm home. And they all tried to persuade me not to go. And I went, listen, no, I'm going home. I don't care what you say. I love yous all for what you've done to me. Thanks, I won't forget it. But I'm going home. I'm going to face the music. Yeah, just for close. They slaughtered me. They slaughtered me for it. But it wasn't their decision. It was my decision. Just for closure. To thought. Yeah, but I'd had enough. I'd had enough by this time. I knew it would have ended up with a longer sentence or death. And I don't think I was quite ready for that. I thought maybe there's a bit more left in me. Maybe going through something. I'd always wanted to get educated. So I had a plan in my head where I said, look, just go home. You know, you're going to get at least, 15 years here. You know, worst case scenario. Yeah. So, well, not least, 10 to 15 you're looking at. So go home and get it done. But while you're there, treat it like, it's education for you. So I had that in my head. I didn't know what it was going to be like, but that was the plan. So then, we sort of alluded to early on, I went and handed myself in and spoke to my solicitor. My solicitor advised me not to. And then I said, no, look, I'm going to do it. And he said, listen, you might need a little bit of help here. And I was thinking, well what do you mean help? So we anything, something from God, anything that I can do to try and help you. And I've got, weird. I said, what do you mean, something from God? I've got a little sort of thing here that might go well. I've done loads of good things. He said, well, things like that, I can go and argue. These are mitigating circumstances. And I said, I've actually got a relative who works in the Vatican. And he's going, what? I said, yeah, he's, when we were kids and my dad died, and I sort of buddied up with him, and anyway, he went off to university, I went to the street, he went and got a law degree, become a barrister, I become a drug dealer, but then, and once the church found out that he was a trained barrister, he ended up going to work in the Vatican. While he was in the Vatican, he had to go and work in the States, in Washington. And while he was there was an up-and-coming senator by the name of Obama. So I'm telling my lawyer this, and he's going, what? So someone who you know, who's a relative of yours, he knows the Pope and he knows Obama. And I went, well, yeah, sort of, and that's the way it is. And he's going, wow, no way. And I'm going, yeah. I said, in fact, I've even got his number in my phone here. He said, have you? Yeah. He said, yeah. I said, well, why? What do you want me to do? He said, ring him and ask him to pray for you, you little dickhead. And I thought, wow, at least he had a sense of humour, so I'm going to go with this guy. He's definitely my solicitor. And he did, he wants to fight it all away, but I had a plan in my head, and, I did read through all of the depositions. It was 22,000 pages, and it took me 3 months to read them 3 times. Diligently and make notes. I've still got them to this day. They're under the stairs there. And I sort of whittled it down, so I got 1 charge of conspiracy out, so there's a maximum I can get of 12 years. And so I went to be sentenced on the 28th of February 2012. It was, after being moved from Walton Prison to Old Course Prison, because they said I was an escape risk. So what happened then was I was given a 10-year sentence, and I was sent to Armley Prison in Leeds, which was like just an absolute culture shock for me.
Just before that, when you were in Marbella and you were thinking, right, I'm going to go back to the UK, I'm going to face the music, had you spoken to your solicitor or anyone and thought about how long you could possibly get, or at least what did you have in your mind that you'd get in terms of sentence wise? 16 years.
Worst case scenario. Worst case. 16.
So 8.
So I was going to do 8.
Yeah
That's if I went guilty early doors. But one of the charges, I really got hammered for the 1 charge, really, when you think about it realistically, because I got a 10 on it, so they never give me no concession. I didn't, I done okay.
Yeah.
Considering, the indictment, there was 12 people on the indictment, and I was number 2 on the indictment.
Bloody hell.
So I was classed as being a senior member, which it got down to a significant role, because I just managed this side, the logistics of this side, and not the logistics of abroad on that particular case.
You had a big party, didn't you, before you...
Well, I had a get together in the pub.
Sorry,
we had a bit
might not be the right.
We had a bit of a sing song and a bit of an emotional time, saying bye to my family and all that.
Yeah, what was that like? Yeah.
Well, it was sad, to be fair, but all my mates showed up and my family showed up. And
was that before the sentencing, or was that?
That was before I handed myself in jail, because I had what's known as a European arrest warrant. So I still to this day have not been questioned by the police. I was just sent to jail and just sent right to court.
Really?
Yeah. I've had no interview. There's no need. A European arrest warrant is enough evidence to sufficiently charge you.
Right.
And go ahead. So it was easy for me to do what I'd done, and I'd done my research. They'd obviously done their research. So I think fair, all in all, was 10 years, because I was the last one on the case. So they just wanted, then that puts that case to bed then.
And what was it like when the judge read out the
It was strange, because I didn't realise, you remember him saying, no, he's going to give me more, but for having the guts and the honesty to come and take your medicine, I'll give you a lesser sentence. And that was strange. And he had his gold, glasses on. He just lowered them, and and then when he gives you the sentence, and it's all like, take him down. I didn't really think he said that.
Is that what they say?
Yeah, they actually do say take him down. It was like, wow, and you do go down to the depths of the jail, and then you're ready to just be shipped out then.
To wherever.
Yeah, well, no, hopefully back to where you've just come from, but obviously they had different ideas with me.
Yeah, I can't imagine that feeling of like just being in front of that, because it's an ominous sort of place anyway, isn't it? Depending which way you go, but that whole system, and then suddenly you get 10 years.
Well, yeah, I remember sitting in the cell that night and writing letters to all my family, and just saying, listen, drop me out, just leave me alone, let me just do this on my own. I'll see you when I get out, and you'll see the difference then. Other than that, just leg it.
Goodness me. And then so during that time, because you moved around different prisons, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And so what was the sort of, you know, what was the first year like? Had you done prison time before that time?
No,
or was that
I'd done like a couple of nights here and there through drunk driving charges, and I've been pretty cute about getting away with things in the past. I'd always kept myself out of trouble, but you know, I'd done a little bit of time abroad before, but you know.
So really that first year, what was that first year like?
Just getting used to it and finding out how things work. I remember going in and everyone was calling the prison officers, or Scouser as they calling them boss. But I told myself, no, don't call them boss. Find out what their name is and remember their name. I remember that being first in my head. Call them by their name, and let's see if they call you by your name, and let's see where that gets you. And it worked. It worked, you know, not boss. You know, no. What's the name?
Yeah.
Find out what their name is. It's giving them another title that maybe it's not sufficient to call them that.
Yeah.
You know?
I know what you mean. To try and sort of...
It's one of Covey's ideas as well, isn't it? In the 7 Habits to Success. He teaches that. And I didn't know until later on after I read that. Find out the name. Do you know what I mean? And deal with that. Don't deal with a title or...
Yeah. To try and sort of make things a bit easier, not, you know, so you've got them on your side instead of... Yeah.
And then I ended up, when I went to Leeds, there was a governor there called Governor Barker, and I was writing poetry. Come round one night and seen I was writing, and I'd lent a guitar off some guy who worked in the library. So I was playing guitar, and I gave him some of the poems because he was interested in them, the governor. I thought, oh. Anyway, he was a cool governor, because then he went, have you got your own guitar? I went, yeah, at home. He said, well, yeah, bring me a form, an application form, which are called an app, and a request. He said, and I'll sign it off. I said, I can have my own guitar in here. He went, yeah. I went, oh my God. So I remember phoning my mate who had on my PIN number that night and saying, listen, get the guitar ready, it's coming in if he brought in on a visit. Anyway, the next day, my missus, or my girl who I was with at the time, she come in to see me. She went, you're okay? I said, yeah, I've got, you know... She went, if you're speaking to anyone, I said, yeah, there's this kid, Andy Lindo, his name is, he's the library orderly, and he's lent me his guitar, so I'm sound. So she went, oh, I'm glad you've got someone to talk to. I said, he's cool, he was a music teacher in school, and I said, he's proper, he can play the piano, and he can, you know, plays the guitar, amazing, so he's been teaching me some bits. I went, you know, so I'm happy. She went, oh, I'm glad to know that. So that night and all that, I remember... She's gone home, and I've rang her to make sure she's got home okay with the kids and all that, and she went, hey, you dickhead. She went, he always knew you were a bad judge of character. I said, why? She went, do you know who he is? I said, no. I said, I just know his name's Andy. She said, do you know what he's in for? I said, no. She went, well, he cut his missus up in half, he bubble wrapped her, he put it in the loft, and he invited her mum and dad round and said, I don't know where she is, just because he was carrying on. And I've thought, no way. Did he do that? So anyway, later on that night, he's come in to ask for his guitar back, because he did every night at 8:30 to go back, and then he'd give me it of a morning because I was on the wing and he was working out. So he'd come in, I went, oh, Andy, you never told me what happened there, and what you're in for. I said, I've just rang me missus because I said on visit that you were my mate, and I said, why didn't you tell me? He went, oh, I don't really like telling anyone. I said, well, I'm not surprised. I said, what happened there, mate? He said, oh, it was just a moment of madness. I said, that's got to be more than a moment of madness there, what you've done. So that was sort of like my first insight into, hang on, I'm going to be with anybody on everybody in these jails. And I'm not going to know until you ask.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember 2 days afterwards, lads were coming to me saying, oh, what are you in for? What are you in for? Because I had loads of depositions, because your deps follow you around even after the case, and they wouldn't put them into storage in there because they were a fire hazard, because you had 22,000 pages. Yeah. So the 2 kids either side of me and my cell kept on saying to me, listen, what are you in for? And I'm going, listen, never mind what I'm in for. What are you in for? And so the fella on the left said, I'm in for arson. And the fella on the right said, I'm in for arson. And they've left me with 22,000 pieces of paper because they said it's a fire hazard. And they put me in the middle of 2 arsonists. I'm thinking, this is not right. This is absolutely not right. So there was things like that had happened. And then I got moved to Lindholme prison.
Why'd you get moved? Is it just because capacity? Or
yeah, because I became a category C prisoner then.
Right.
I wasn't category B then, because a B is you go to a local prison, and a B is 10 years and over. And because I got 10 years and it was a few weeks into, and I'd already done 6 months, then I could go to a cat C jail. So they shipped me off to Lindholm prison in Doncaster with 1,400 prisoners, which was just an absolute mind-bending experience in terms of like, wow, this is just bizarre. There's like 500 Muslims, most probably about 50 Scousers and 50 Manx, and the rest is just full with Yorkshire fodder. And it's...
There was a story which you mentioned in the book when someone, I think when you first went in, about a guy who you could hear crying or something.
Oh, that was in Walton jail. And
Yeah.
what had happened is that was on his first night, and my first night that I'd gone into Walton, and I could hear him crying through the pipes, and I was in the toilet that night, and I could hear him, and I've knocked on the pipes, and he's knocked back. I went, "Are you all right?" And he's gone, "Well, no, I'm not really." I went, "Why? What? We went, I've just been sentenced." And I'm thinking, "Oh man, he must have got 10 or 12 years. This fella's in a bad way." And I went, "Listen, don't worry. In the morning when I open up, I'll make sure you're all right. I've got some food here. I'll give you food, and if you've got no ciggies, I'll go round the lads on the wing, because I knew loads of them, and I'll get you some." And so for 15 minutes I coaxed him round and all, and he was okay. I went, "You're all right now?" And he went, yeah, I'm okay. I said, "Well, how long did you get?" And he went, 28. And I'm thinking, wow, 28. I went, 28, yeah. He went, yeah, 28 days. And I'm fuming. I'm thinking, hang on, I'm going to get 15 years possibly shoved up my hoop here, and you're crying over, you'll be out in 2 weeks. You're divvy. You know, but it's relative to him.
Yeah.
You know, 2 weeks is just a bad time for anybody in them places, especially with the size of the cockroaches in there. So yeah, so you meet loads of different type of people, but it's all relative to them at that time.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got the likes of Andy Lindo, who had a life sentence. Me, who'd had 10 years. So then when I moved to Lindholm prison, you know, you're walking around with appellant lifers who haven't owned up to the crime, and so they're not getting out.
Yeah.
They're just not getting out. You know, they won't do no courses. They refuse to do this and that. They just refuse to adhere to anything. You feel sorry for them. And that's when I started writing more then. And that's when I started to write the book. I won a poetry competition and decided to get a group of lads, and not just me, receive the prize, which was a published author by the name of Andy Croft to come in. And Andy Croft come in, and I said, "Listen, just don't teach me. Can we get a group going?" So we made a group. We'd done a family play. We'd done loads of fundraising.
Yeah.
We wrote all plays which we'd go and perform to the inmates around Christmas, and I was doing all carol services, and I was getting up and singing and playing my guitar. Yeah, done a one-man show. I had to sing a cappella, Silent Night, and Once Enrolled David City, so they'd let me do a gig on Christmas Day for the lads. That was the payoff. And let me tell you, still to this day, I can feel the eyes of 1,400 people looking at me. Well, not 1,400, there would have been 900 because the Muslims had their own service. But I could feel everybody just looking at me, waiting for me to just cock up.
Fuck up, yeah.
Yeah. They were waiting for me to just like fall flat on my face, and I wouldn't look at any of them. So yeah, that was, you know, we had some funny experiences there as well within that jail, but there were some sad experiences. A couple of inmates passed away. There was a couple of murders in there. So me just getting into me writing, and I decided to write the book. Then Andy said, you know, have you got any ideas? So I just started writing. So 6 months later, it was an apology letter to my mum to start with, and I realised after 6 months he had a lot to say sorry for. But while that, you know, my sister had just took her own life as well. And I remember that was a bad time in the jail when they come in. And I remember them taking me in the room, and I thought they're just about to tell me my mum's passed away. And I was just reading it. And they went, you know, I went, "It's my mum, isn't it?" And they went, "No." I went, "Well, what? Who?" And then that's when it was like, oh, even more dread. And they went, "Oh no, it's your sister." And I was like, "No." And they went, "No, she's taken her own life." And no.
Fucking hell, yeah.
So it was a bit strange. Yeah, so I started writing more, then started to do more education, started to do some higher level diplomas and like level 4s, and so I was pushing myself, which seemed to be working in a way which I'd never sort of thought I'd go before. I started reading books on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which that then just opened like sort of another side to me, which I thought, wow, this is amazing. I love to explore the human person and the human mind, what makes us think that way and how can we change that. So I went on this sort of inner exploration while I was doing it, and also started to do some counselling courses and coaching courses, which was fabulous.
Whilst in prison,
whilst in prison, and started to help loads of the lads then, and started to fight for the lads' rights within the jail system, which got a bit touchy at times and got me into some stuff. And there's, the prison system can be a bit punitive at times. And when my sister passed away, the nurse manager who looked after me, I got her some pictures sent to her signed because she was a Liverpool fan, and one of the prison staff, because I was like fighting for the prisoners' right, didn't sort of like me, and they got me in the office and charged me with conditioning prison staff and give me a 28-day charge, which was 28 days to be added to my sentence. And I thought, wow, how can you do that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Can you show some compassion? And not only that, I've done loads of fundraising within the jail for, members of staff's families in there as well. I thought, well, no, you can't have your cake and eat it. And,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
And so I fought it, and anyway, from that, I got a move. So they moved me closer to home to be by my family, which I was then allowed to go to my sister's memorial because they wouldn't let me to go to a funeral. So they had another service when I got home, so I could go, and they allowed me to go to that. So that I felt a bit humanised.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then I started to go to a creative writing class in HMP Kenny, because that was in McGull, and there was a teacher there by the name of Rebecca Talentire, who I said to her, listen, I've wrote this book. She went, yeah, everyone says this. And, yeah, I've heard all this. And I remember going to a door and knocking on a door and saying, I've got this book. And she went, and I'd come in with this big folder and just give her the folder. And she went, I'll read it when I've got time. And I went, okay. And I was in the gym about 3 weeks later, and she should come hurtling across the gym. And she went, oh my God, Walmsley, we've got to type this up. This is so winning the Kessler Award. I went, what the fuck's the Kessler Award? And she said, oh, it's this prisoner award. Come on, we'll go type it up. So it took 3 months, just within working hours within the jail system, me going in the class to type it up. And we just got it in deadline day, and thought nothing of it. About 4 months later, I get summoned to the governor's office, and I'm thinking, oh, there we go again. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I was always getting called by them because, like, oh no, deal with this, deal with that, and deal with that regarding prisoners' rights. And then he said, listen, I'd like to inform you that this is Tom from the Kessler Awards, and you've won the Platinum Prize, and you're going to London tomorrow. I said, what? He said, we're going to give you the train ticket and we're going to let you travel down on your own. I said, you're letting me out of jail on my own? And he went, yeah, tomorrow. And I went, oh my God, this is fabulous. What's going on? He went, yeah, you're going to receive your award off Michael Gove, the Justice Minister. So that was arranged. It was like, well, okay. So that was like a whistle stop there and back and from.
And you didn't have to be with anyone. It was just walking out those gates and then train bang down there.
They arrange all your travel for you. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
And so obviously the award was for
the first 9 chapters, or up until about 1986 it was. So my first early years. So that sort of G'd me up a bit. I thought, wow, this is good. And then all the staff in the jail were saying, can we read it? And so loads of governors and loads of education staff were coming up to me and going, listen, this is amazing, do you realise what you've done? I'm going, no. I'm thinking, okay, this is good.
And you've never written anything before that?
I've written bits of poems,
and
a few little short stories, but nothing like that. It was just, I knew he had a good imagination. I knew I could tell a story. But it was just getting it down on paper, and what's it like. So what I've done, I actually just thought the process out and tried to put that thought process on the page of how I was thinking.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because you come across as like you talk, the way you come across, you can tell a story really well. So that must be hard. I mean, I've read your book, so I know it's brilliant, but it must be hard getting it all down, and you want it to come across as if you're speaking it.
Yeah, so I just tried to be honest.
Yeah.
But also not too honest to a point where I get myself into trouble. so that's where I went with it. And then I got moved to another jail then, to HMP Kirkham in Blackpool because Kennet had closed down as a Cat D prison, which I was gutted with, absolutely gutted. But by that time I was working out and I got a job in an academy, in a sports academy in Bootle, which was Jamie Carragher's sports academy, but I only went there to basically, brush and mop floors and do whatever, paint rounds and, just be a dog's body, so to speak, or the janitor. And the teacher never turned up one day, and because I'd done the NLP class, they wanted a class on communication. I went, yeah, I'll do that if you want. And he went, yeah. I was like Yozza Hughes and Boys in the Black stuff. I don't know whether you'll know it. For all those listeners, he's really young, and I'm not. Anyway, for those who remember Boys from the Black stuff, Yozza Hughes was a character who went, I'll do that, gives a job. So I just said, yeah, I'll do that. So anyway, 20 students and a lesson in communication, but it's sports to do in a level 3, which is like A-level sports. But part of the psychology bit, sports psychology, is how to communicate in different levels of arousal. And I done the lesson in a Yorkshire accent for an hour, and the kids loved it. It was a bit sort of left field, but they loved it. And then they come in, the staff, the day after, and said, do you want to come and take one again and we observe it? I said, yeah, come on. And so I'd done one again, and then he went, okay, this is cool, this is good, teaching post-16s.
Yeah.
And they said, do you want to do your education or your teaching or your tutoring qualification, and we'll sort it? I said, yeah, come on. So I'd done a distant learning one, and 9 months later, I was head of pastoral care for 50 young people, and that's when I started to realise that, hang on, I love this. This is cool. And the kids were coming to me with problems, and I was sorting their problems out. And maybe this might be wrong for me to say, but I used to sort of mark the kids, their attitude, instead of marking the work. And to me, that's massive. Mark the person instead of the work, because if they want to put that effort in, I'll guide them into that effort.
Yeah.
And so from that, loads of the stuff which I'd learned in NLP and the therapy, especially the Gestalt therapy, and loads of CBT was coming into play.
Yeah.
And I seemed to be more of a therapist than a counsellor with the kids, more of a guide, and with the staff.
Oh, I can imagine.
As well. And then so things just happened and snowballed. And then sort of I started, the jail asked me to get out and do some talks. So I ended up going to be keynote speaker at an EU conference in the Hilton Hotel about reducing reoffending, and 500 delegates from all over Europe, which was amazing while I was still in custody and heading back to jail. I'd done one for probation, when probation went privatised, which I had to then go right back to jail afterwards as well.
Ah, right. So, what, like when G4S took over?
No. The probation was privatised and it was sold off. Different bits of it were sold off to bidders, and it was a company called Interserve. Who got the Liverpool low to medium risk. The high risk stays with probation because it's going to have to stay at a national level if it's high risk. It's all about protecting the public. And I become like their sort of their poster boy, which later on come at a cost, because loads of the prison staff then didn't like the way I was being sort of paraded around, and everyone else didn't get it, but I was getting asked to speak here, there and everywhere, so some of the prison staff took a dislike to me, and I ended up getting punished for it in the end, where they wouldn't let me go and work out. So I used to be released from jail every morning at 6 o'clock and come back at 7 o'clock at night. They stopped and had me scrubbing floors for a couple of months, because I'd done a blog around prison education and said it was a load of tosh. It was just a tick box exercise, which I didn't really agree with, and sort of said everyone should sing from the rooftops and go against it.
And you gave your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I gave me thoughts on it, but I'm not allowed. And that was the day I realised that when you go to jail, you don't lose your liberty or your freedom, you lose your opinion. You've still got your liberty and you've still got your freedom because you are you.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
especially if you've got a release date anyway.
Do you see when you were helping the kids and obviously you do that now,
in a different type of way.
Which we'll come on to. Do you think you see yourself in some of them, and like the
Yeah, obviously, yeah. But the parents as well, I go, oh, weird, that's me. Because, you know, there's no manual when you get a kid. There's no parenting manual. There might be books saying, yeah, do this, do that, and here's the studies. But, you know, it's all different circumstances, environment, education, social deprivation, you know, class.
Yeah. Which we could have a whole...
Inequality. I mean, we can go all day on it, you know, neglect, exploitation at different periods in time. And I was just spotting things, and I was then one of the mad things was while I was in jail, I got asked to speak at police headquarters in Penwortham
in Wigan.
Is that what it is? Wigan, Preston Ways.
Preston
Ways.
Yeah.
And that was mad going in, and there was 70 top officers there. And I remember going, I was in the car park and I was thinking, I can't do this. I'm going to get slaughtered for this. If I go back to jail, they say, where have you spoke to there? I go police headquarters. They're just going to leg me, think you're the proper one, you. And I was thinking I had one foot out in the car park and I've got all the steering wheel. I went, I can't do this. I thought, if I do this, my life changes forever now. And my phone went, and it was the chief superintendent. I went, hi Paul, are you coming? And I went, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. And so I've went in, and he's there, and he's in this suit with this purple tie, and he looked this baldy head. And I went, hi, I'm Paul. He went, I said, what do you do? Just asking him what his role was in the police. He went, I fight crime. I just thought, oh my God, you're a belter. This is funny. So I went in, and you know, and I'd done the talk, and it was amazing. And I met up with 2 senior police officers from Blackburn. One, his name's Dave Pascoe, one, his name's Justin Seravetti, and they were the head of early actions and restorative justice team, and they took a shine to me and said, listen, what you're doing, we really, really love it. Do you want to come and see what we're doing, and maybe you can help there? So I went to a few schools in Blackburn, and they trained me up in restorative justice, and then the chief super in Merseyside got involved with it, and then 2 days before I was about to be released, my phone goes, and I notice it's Merseyside Police. And I go, oh no, they're not going to release me. And it's the chief super on the phone, and he went, listen, Paul. He said, we've all had a meeting regarding you, and I'm thinking, oh, this is bad. He said, and what we're going to do? We said, we're going to go back into the pocket fund the money that we took off you. But he said, we're going to give you £20,000 of it back. But it's to go out into the community and all that and carry on with the work you're doing. I said, well, listen, I don't want that money. You give it to that youth centre that I've been working with in the Brunswick and Bootle, because it's one of the I think it's the 17th most deprived area in Britain. I said, and let them manage the funds, and I'll just go and do the project from there. So we done a Dream to Achieve project, and we had 40 kids for over 7 to 8 months. And the last part of it was we done this Operation Crackdown, where we trained them up as sort of with life skills, survival skills, orienteering skills, map reading, and so they could get out there in the wilderness and do whatever. So we took 8 young people to Anglesey, but the bus was hijacked en route. They were hijacked. It was just amazing what happened. And they were then turned into government agents, and there was a load of drugs which were in the woods, and the drug gangs were following them, and the police were following them, but they didn't know who was who, and they had to make it down to 20 stations to be rescued by the RAF, to be flown off in a helicopter.
Jesus.
And anyway, they just failed miserably. But it was amazing. It was amazing to put these kids through it, to let them know, listen, you know, life isn't this, it's all, we'll do this. It's like getting involved in the drug game when you're good. We'll do this. But the reality of it is not, it's cold and it's wet and it's miserable at times in terms of the way you feel inside. And so you've got to be really, really strong to do this. So that sort of got me a little bit of press as well. And then obviously a load of other things got me press. And obviously the books come out now as well. So for the past 18 months, I've been working in pupil referral units. I've been doing one-on-one tuition with young, vulnerable people who are totally at risk from the ages of 13 to 16.
How do you mean at risk? Like, in what sense?
Well, because they're vulnerable, then they're classed at risk. And most of them are not in normal school, so they're being excluded from school. Most of them come from single parents, maybe in the foster care system or in the care system, and are unable to function in mainstream school. So then they have to put them in what's called PRU schools, people referral units. So they're called different units now. They rebrand the name of it all the time. So that's what I'm doing at the minute, and I seem to have a bit of a connection with most of these young people. We call them kids, but we have to call them young people to be politically correct. So I really enjoy it. We've just come back from taking 40 kids to Wales, camping for a few days and getting to know them, and then getting to see how they interact outside their environment. And that's what I want to really do. We've set up our own foundation called the Lewis Dunn Foundation. Lewis Dunn was a 16-year-old who was murdered on the canal in Liverpool just because he was in a place dressed like everyone else dresses in the area, i.e. in the North Face, and he noticed as he went past two guys who were looking for somebody else that they had a shotgun, so then he's ran and they've just shot him in the back and they've killed him. And
Jesus.
So in his name we've set up this foundation, which we've been doing work with over 40 young people over the past 6 months, and from them 40 people we've identified 5 people who we need to then target to try and guide them in a right way. But it's difficult at the minute. It's difficult getting funding. Loads of private funders help it at the minute, and we do most of the work ourselves. But we'll get there. And of course, I'm in uni doing a psychology degree.
Yeah, what's that like?
It's cool. I like it because I put all what I've learned into the work with the kids. I could just notice things immediately. And now the psychology departments at 2 of the local universities and the criminology department have noticed the work that we're doing, and we've had people following us around for now a year already from different universities. The police have given me some of their students in the policing unit to do work and to do a study, so they've been doing studies. So I'm hoping that the work which we've been doing and the interventions we're doing, we're going to be able to measure the risk and measure the impact we've had by getting the methodology and getting it coded up, so we can actually come up with some stats for the work which we're doing. Because it's difficult to say I've saved somebody's life. Well, how can you do that to a 14-year-old kid? Because yet they're still on the street anyway. But you know, you might have had an impact of steering them out of trouble, steering them out of them sort of murky waters. So that's, I think, out of everything, and what the book is the book is like a manual to steer you out of that trouble. It's there to navigate you away from that to someone like me, because there's not just me, there's thousands like me out there. There's loads of campaigns running in Liverpool at the minute. The No More Knives campaign, which is taken off at the minute, which is Real Men Don't Carry Knives, because there's a huge knife problem, as well as there's a huge endemic problem of smoking skunk and criminal child exploitation as well, rife across the city. So we do sessions about child exploitation and how that would look, how it would smell, because sometimes it smells by just the taste of a McDonald's. Someone buying someone a little bit of food or a Kentucky or some sweets, and before you know it, it just escalates. And then obviously, because I know that I was exploited when my dad died, and this kid was coming around my house and throwing me all bits, have a look at that, showing off, and then before you know it, he'd go, you know, I'll take you out to a restaurant, and then he introduced me to curries. And so he exploited me by just taking me to Indian restaurants.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, you know, like you said, just that little tiny sort of like pivot, if you like, because you were, you know, you had straight A's, you know, you're extremely talented at football and boxing, so.
And then got into music later on.
And then got into music, which we haven't covered. I mean, we could do a whole thing, but you know, it is just that little tiny sort. You know, if it hadn't been for that guy, do you think, or that person, or whoever it was, do you think?
I think it's more. It's my dad dying, because my dad was me like me sort of ball and chain, which was going to keep me not going. It's like tying a dog up in the yard, because you know it's going to bite someone. You know, once it's let off that thing, it's just going to bite someone, and that's what happened with me, really. You know, because I've had that upbringing. And getting back to what we were talking about before, it wasn't until I was in a university lecture hall watching loads of stats on the ACE report, which is Adverse Childhood Experiences, that I looked and I ticked 20 boxes, and I knew then And it wasn't until that time that I knew that there was nothing down for me from the minute I ran away from home and the minute I started being a fence for stolen goods at the age of 10 and becoming a human sort of stash as well. Yeah. And then, so it just becomes a part of your life. And there's loads of young people out there now who are just on the cusp of that, but don't realise that, 99.999% of the people who get into that life, it'll just end up with nothing. Yeah. Because it doesn't pay. You say crime does pay, but it does for the select few. It's like how many make it as a professional footballer, how many do make it as an artist. It's most probably the same amount of numbers, sort of, and demographically of how it fall. So I think that's where I want to go. I want to try and get my doctorate in psychology. Well, not try, I'm going to do it. Want to develop these methods as well and get these local services to realise that what we're doing works, and then which will encourage them to maybe employ people like myself without the hassle that I'm actually finding at the minute. But I do like the obstacles that I find in doing all this challenge. Yeah, I do like that challenge. I think, okay, that's...
How do we get around this?
How do I get around this? It's like being at a board and thinking, how do I get across this now? How do I get these to here, from here? Yeah. It's the same. It's that entrepreneurial...
We spoke about it earlier, didn't like that journey. Mm-hmm. It's not the end goal. It's like that whole like subsection in between of, the journey.
Life is the journey. And it's, mine has not been boring. I've had some sad times. I'm not going to lie, I've cried my eyes out at the time. I'm not going to lie that I've laughed so much that I think I might have burst something inside sometimes. But it's having that sort of, that light and shade. And being able to recognise that light and shade, and being able to recognise them points now in life where I can see these young people and go, oh, weird. Yeah, I know just what you need, and I know what I need, but I haven't got the resources to do it right now. And I haven't got the people around me who are listening just yet, because everyone is too busy fighting for their own lives right now, because there's cuts everywhere. Yeah. Especially in the local services, and especially across major, inner cities. It wasn't until I've just come back from my first holiday, which I've ever had, and well, not ever, but in a good while, I can't go out the country. So it was down south, and it was like just realising how easy the life was down there, pressure-wise. To how difficult it is in these inner cities, knowing that everything's there and people just follow suit. Yeah.
Well, I think, considering you've gone through the whole system and back to front, there should be more people like you that are, helping these kids, really, than, say people who haven't been through, those shit times that, and been through the system and understand, and have got the street, those street smarts that understand, the point I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think what I always say is some people can think on the feet and some people can't, and all the rest just wondering what the fuck's going on. And we need to, cultivate the knowledge, especially that I've got, and cultivate the knowledge that all the other lads who I've known who are grafting, who were grafting, who are now not grafting, who are like, oh no, I'm just working in a factory now, just leave me out of it. It's that knowledge and getting them together and going, no, here's what we've got. Yeah. Here's what we've learned along the way, instead of going, no, leave them there. Because, I think it's that Mandela quote of, how can I, expect to change if no one else is willing to change?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
There's got to be, it's got to be both.
Yeah, definitely.
Both parties.
And like you said before, it's you just mentioned it then, like it follows you around, considering that you can't go out of the country, and some of the difficulties of getting certain things and getting into certain institutions maybe. And
well, it was even getting a bank account when I come out, and getting a doctor's appointment, and getting getting a dentist appointment. It was difficult. Yeah. It was like, what you've got no accounts? You go, well, who are you? I was like, I've been here. You've been there, and then they become judgmental. Yeah. And it's like, oh, hang on, no, I didn't expect this. I just wanted the bank account. Yeah. Luckily enough, I've got enough about me where I can sit down, I can have a conversation with somebody about it, and not get to that screaming point. I don't believe in screaming and shouting, although I used to. It's not about that no
No.
more. No,
No,
you're not going to get anywhere.
no, definitely not.
You're
Thank
not
you,
gonna get
Paul. And obviously, the book is available on Amazon. And
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Yeah.
and where can people find you or bit?
Well, the Lewis Dunn Foundation. .co.uk, www.lewisdunnfoundation.co.uk. That's the foundation we've set up. People can get me on Twitter, at Paul Walmsley 23, and the book's there on Amazon. And there's a couple of things on YouTube as well, and I'm going to be floating around. I might be doing a tour soon. I don't know. I've been offered. There's a few talks.
Music tour.
No, a talk. So we'll just see what happens. As I say, the plan is there's no plan other than to be available for the young people, which seem to be getting called upon more and more and more to try and give them help, guidance and advice, or just be a little bit of a mate to them, knowing that I know how tough it is, and also I know sort of how they can feel as well at times.
Yeah, and following Liverpool.
Yeah. I just went back to my first Liverpool match and sat in my seat the first time in 12 years against West Ham the other week, and we won 4-0. But the last match I watched in 2006 is when we beat West Ham 2-1, and that was with my son, and I've just sat next to him again for the first time in 12 years, which was amazing. A bit emotional as well.
I can imagine.
And he's loving it, and we're not doing too bad at this time, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Thank you so much, mate. Honestly, I really, really appreciate it. And I'll put all the links on the in the description, bits and pieces. So thank you. Honestly, I appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks.
You're a star, mate. Thank you. You're a star. Thank you, mate.